You're listening to How I See It, hosted by Han. You guessed it, that's me. I am here to motivate and inspire you with guests from all different industries and backgrounds. So get ready for personal stories of success, of growth, full of highs and lows, and of course, unapologetic realness. This is How I See It. Okay, you guys, I am so excited to welcome Cassie Blakely to the podcast. She is the founder of Warrior Parent Consulting, which is essentially her consultancy business that works with not just parents of children with ADHD, but also young adults with ADHD. I've had the pleasure of working with her for a bit now, and I've just learned so much about her and her story. It's super inspiring, so we had to have her on the podcast. Cassie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited.
It's been such a pleasure getting to know you and your business and learn more, not just about ADHD, but emotionally regulating through your own story and kind of the mental health journey you've been on. And so I really wanted to have you on the podcast so that we could just have not just an intimate conversation, because we both go there, but just so more people could hear about adult ADHD and what that looks like and how it's impacting people's mental health.
It's big. So thank you for having me. And we're always going deep. I always say, I don't talk sports, news, and weather. Even at parties, I really get down within 5 or 10 minutes of the big stuff.
I know. I feel like I used to be embarrassed that I was that person. And I used to feel very isolated and alone and weird that I couldn't sit with people and have surface level conversation. And I went through a phase, and I still kind of am of trying to work on it, but I've also gone through a phase where I'm trying to accept that it's just who I am.
Yeah, I get that. Well, at 50, I'm still working in progress on that. But I know I have to prep myself if I'm going into a situation, because there's not always going to be where you're okay, I can do this. So I have to prep myself if I know I'm going to a party or something where I do have to keep it on that level. But usually I attract people that want to talk about mental health, ADHD, dyslexia, out of the box thinking. And so usually it ends up working out.
My friends always joke that the person in the room who has is having existential crises or is dealing with trauma will find me, will seek me out. And it's so funny because it always happens. And I'm honored that I'm that person, but it's also I think about trying to find a balance between, self-regulating and being able to not trauma dump on people while also being yourself, which is, I know something that you work with clients on as well.
Absolutely. And it's a big thing. And I think parents too are going along this journey and also self-discovering and learning about themselves through their children. This is how I was diagnosed, as I started seeing things through my girls, going, whoa, hold on here. And as females, it does look very different than the way it shows up in males. Mm-hmm. We are a lot of times rule followers, and it's more going on internal, and this kind of negative self loop. I keep talking about it, this negative self loop that most people don't know you're having, but you're exhausted mentally. And so I started to see these things, and that's how I diagnosed myself. And it's become this journey the last 20 years of as a parent and for myself. And I just want to share that with as many people as I can, because I felt so alone.
Yeah. And I mean, I've shared my story with you about how I started the podcast, and it was the same thing. I felt very alone in my own mental health journey. And I think conversations like this, and then the content you post online and the clips we share here, are really what helps people along the way with their own healing journey. So with that, I'm going to have you take us back. Where did you grow up? What did your childhood kind of look like? And how did you get to this place where you realized, oh my gosh, I actually have ADHD and this makes so much sense?
Yeah, I know. I have an interesting kind of childhood. I grew up in the Midwest in a small town in Southern Illinois. Most of my family still lives in the Midwest. I'm the only Californian, but I've lived in 6 or 7 different states. And I came into this world as a sick child and not knowing. And because I did grow up in kind of a small town, we did not have the medical hospitals to try to diagnose that. So I was in and out of hospitals for 7 years, and then finally realized that I was having some problems and had to go and get emergency surgery.
Wow.
At 7. At 7. So for 7 years, I was kind of in and out of pain. I started noticing, wow, I'm different. And I also want to help people in whatever way. I wasn't sure at that point what that looked like. And then my journey continued to have health problems throughout, really for the first 27 years of my life.
Wow. I mean, and I think especially being like from like literally the womb, like 1 to 7, having to go through physical health issues, I feel like without even knowing you were building up serious resilience.
Yes, definitely. And difference, because back then the surgery that I had, it was a large scar, several scars, being on bed rest when you're 7 and having kids come over to, sit with you and do those things. So I already had felt different in my family, which is interesting. And then I had that on top of it. And then, there were a lot of things going on in my family that caused all kinds of things and trauma. And one thing that I now know is that I started journaling from a very young age.
Wow.
And that really did save me. I also have a child development degree, and so I was really interested later on in all of these different modalities, but I would do dramatic play with my Barbies. Aww. I'm not going to say for how long because it was a little too long, but it really did save me. I didn't even know I was processing some big feelings and things that were going on dysfunction-wise in my family.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that, because I think that when you grow up in like a traumatic and very chaotic household and there's a lot going on and you've experienced a lot of like deeper things at a young age, you start to think very differently. And I feel like that alone causes isolation. I know for me, I felt like very different. I also feel like I was someone who was like in my head a lot, that was like reading or playing with dolls or like imagining like scenes in my head of like people talking back and forth. Even now as an adult, like I have a lot of conversations like in my head with myself, because I think when you're young and you have to do that for so long, it becomes like a part of who you are. So looking back, do you think that, and I know there's a lot of debate on this, and this is just like your personal opinion, but like, do you think that you were born with ADHD, or do you think just the trauma you went through at a young age before you were fully developed caused some of these things to pop up?
Yeah, this is a big one. And, I kind of talk about it with my therapist, and I do EMDR. I think it's both, because there is family history in my family of ADHD, but then I had, my brother and my mom who did not. And so we showed up in our family dynamics all very differently. I think as a female, the trauma didn't help my situation, but I also have learning differences. And I was hiding a lot of those because we did not know, how to handle them. And I was not learning to read, but I was not a behavioral problem. So I kind of figured out, like we do as adults, I became the teacher's pet. They all of a sudden were giving me all the A's, and then my mom would have me try to read at home. She's like, you can't read, but the teachers are giving you A's.
So how old were you when, like, at this point you didn't know how to read, but you were like fairly old, right?
Yeah, I was in 3rd or 4th grade.
Wow. So you were fully performing.
Yes.
She was an actress.
I was, yes. And I was sweet, and I knew how to win people over. So that was part of the gift in that. But also deep inside, I felt like I was hiding something, and there was shame involved in that.
Yeah.
And so my sweet grandfather helped me try to learn how to read. But of course, that was a challenge in itself. And my parents tried to give me as much support as they could. But, people weren't talking about dyslexia processing. But people are always asking me, do you think it's because people are more diagnosed now or less? People are always asking that. I think we have more information. And that's why I am an information seeker.
Yes.
I literally seek, I'm curious about everything. And then I just try to pass that on. And what people do with that is what they need to do with it that works for their family dynamics.
Totally. I'm glad you brought that up. It does feel sometimes on social media that everyone says they have ADHD now. Everyone thinks they have it, yada, yada. And I think there's different like levels, of course. Like I've never been diagnosed, but like even working with you and like hearing more about your story, I'm like, well, there's a lot of things that are popping up. But I do think to the original question, like I wonder if it's, hereditary, but then like through trauma, it shows up stronger in different people.
My therapist says that he definitely thinks the trauma has a lot to do with my regulation. And that's why EMDR has worked so well for me, in going back to some past memories and really helping process that. And I feel like I am much more regulated. And I also have so many tools now to regulate myself.
Totally. Well, I'm obviously going to have you get into them today. But going back to your story, I know that there's more, and I want everyone to get like the full glimpse of your story because I think it's super inspiring. So you go through school, you're having to like fake it till you make it. I'm sure that causes a lot of mental health issues. Now you're going to college. What happens next? Where do you go?
Yeah. And I wasn't even supposed to go to college. My school counselor said, no, I don't think you should go because I didn't have good grades.
Aww.
And my brother went in, who is a big academic, and was like, you're going to write my sister a letter of recommendation.
Oh, your sweet brother.
And they respected him so much that he did. And I did go to college, and I ended up majoring in human development and family studies, and then had a concentration in child development. And I loved it, and I started getting straight A's because, again, when you're interested in something and you want to be curious, that brain lights up.
Yeah.
And so you almost hyper focus. And that's why so many entrepreneurs are inventors and different things, because they want to solve a problem and they won't stop until they do.
It's really interesting you say that because I feel like I'm very entrepreneurial and I'm a workaholic. But it's interesting because like in school, I was like not super motivated. I was just, and I don't say this in a weird way, like I was naturally smart. So like I didn't have to study or anything. I love to read.
Jealous.
Like I love to read, like love to read. And so I was really good at school, but then I was horrible at math. And so I'd have to cheat my way through math because like I refused to learn it. Cause like anything, and I feel this as an adult now and I've really had to work on it. Like anything I'm not good at, I don't like to like get really good at or practice or learn. So that's how I was during school. Like science and math, I would cheat. And then like everything else, I was pretty strong. Like I didn't have to study or anything. Mm-hmm. So then when I got a full-time job, like in school, I feel like I was like really good at sales at Nordstrom because I was with people, like I was good with people, but I like did the bare minimum. I was not motivated. And then the moment I started my own company, like my work ethic went like through the roof. So it's really interesting you say that. That's a common theme in ADHD adults.
Definitely. And young adults and families are always asking me about that. And that's why I say, find your superpower.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of young adults really struggle with finding their purpose too, and like figuring out what career they want to go into, or maybe they're in their career now, they're in their like 20s, early 30s, and they feel super unsatisfied. And I think a lot of it does have to do with not being purpose driven. And I think if you lean more ADHD, whether you're diagnosed or not, like you're not going to feel lit up by doing something you don't love to do.
No. I can tell when I'm working on something that I'm so excited, I'll get it done in a zippy, like just, and then something that I've been put off that I know and like, oh, I mean, it will sit at my desk and I have to force myself to do it. I have a lot of tools that I can do that, and I have time timers and different things that we can talk about that help motivate you, but that's where it is more challenging in school. And there are learning differences, like you said, for math, dyscalculia, that is a math learning difference, just like dyslexia is for reading. It's just interesting. That's why I think information is power. Even if you don't want the official diagnosis, the more information you have, the more tools then you can give yourself to be your best version of yourself, whatever that looks like.
Totally. Well, since we're on the topic and like you roll like me, so we're like sporadic, like through your story, I love it. And like someone is on my feed. What are some tools that get you to touch the to-do list that like sits there forever? Because I know I have a to-do list of things that sits there forever. And it's the ones like week after week where I'm like, I need to do that. And I think for me, I have to force myself to Google Calendar it into my schedule or I won't do it. Yes. What are some of the things that you do or the things you tell your clients to do in those moments?
Yeah, schedules and routines are our biggest gift, especially for an ADHD brain. We really need to know and have that time of saying, okay, 9 to 11, that is happening. It's like making an appointment with yourself. We're going to show up for an appointment for someone else. We're not going to cancel because we know.
Yeah.
We need to know that we need to show up for ourselves. So also, I think therapy and understanding why you're doing it. Is there something beyond ADHD where you're not? Is there trauma? Is there a processing? What else is going on for you? And so I think therapy is like always one of the number one, and finding a good therapist that really understands and a modality that works for you. I love time timers. I have them all over my house and they keep me on task because, I'll start one thing and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm worried I'm going to forget. And so I have to do that right in the moment because our executive functioning are not always very strong. It's something we have to work on. I'll get distracted very easily. So I make myself sit at my desk, usually for at least 1 hour. And then I have movement breaks. I know that for myself. Time timers keep me on a schedule. If I think a project's going to be 20 minutes, I put 20 minutes on the timer and I say, go. I chew gum because that's a really big thing for focusing for me. me. I do anything I can to help myself really regulate. You really need to regulate yourself. I have BiTappers. That is my biggest. I love.
Yeah, tell people about the BiTappers.
I know, I was wearing them this morning.
I know, they're
on
so
my way
interesting.
here. Yeah, it's part of EMDR, and they use it in EMDR, and they've used EMDR for PTSD, and so people think, oh well, I don't think I have PTSD. I'm not going to use that.
I do.
Yeah, I know. I have that as well, but it instantly helps regulate your body. And I have these little bracelets, and it uses the right and left brain to calm everything down.
That's crazy. So it's tapping, like on your wrist.
I mean, if you don't have the BiTappers, a lot of therapists will have this. It lights up the right and left brain, and using that, it's just like bilateral movements.
Yeah.
This is why I used to do Jane Fonda back in the day, and I didn't even realizing that was regulating myself.
That's so crazy. So it's interesting that for ADHD and a lot of people struggling with their mental health, that like a lot of emotional regulation and nervous system regulation is tied to their motivation and the way they're able to get things done.
Absolutely. I didn't know that when I was younger. I was like, oh, I think I'm just one of those that, I get revved up and I can't calm myself down. No, you can. It doesn't mean I don't get revved up or that the lid doesn't pop off. It just does less. And now I know what to expect if that happens, and I know what to do before. But I do need a lot of time on my own to regulate. So I have a lot of these times scheduled throughout my day. Okay, 3:00, it's on my schedule. I'm going to go in my room for 10 minutes. I'm going to put my BiTappers on. I'm going to write down any feelings that are stuck. Sometimes we do get that negative self-loop and we're thinking about things over and over and over. Putting it on paper is very helpful. I've asked my husband, I have hundreds of journals. If anything ever happens to me, please burn them. It's not for anyone to see. They are feelings, raw feelings and emotions that I have at that moment that I need to get out.
A lot of people don't think they're capable of building these routines. The biggest thing I've learned from my own healing journey is that like I'm actually incredibly strong, like mentally. I've always known that I'm like resilient, and I think you the same way because of your story, but I think when I was younger, I never thought that I had the capacity to like override my mind. And I think as you start to practice these things, you really start to build confidence, and you're like, wow, I actually do have the power to sit with uncomfortable feelings and initiate tools and move forward. And I think that's very empowering. And I think that's what makes change for you. Like, what do you think that moment was? What is it? Looking back at just everything you've been through and like the things that I know we're about to get into the next part of your story, especially as you were meeting your husband and getting into that like era of your life. But was it like looking back at the past and realizing like, wow, I've been through some shit. Like I can go through anything.
Yeah, I don't even think I saw it at the time. And even today, I'm like, have I been through a lot? And then I tell my story, I'm like, yeah, no, I've been through a lot,
I'm like,
physically and emotionally. But I think for me, I had this overwhelm pattern that really stopped me from doing things. I would get overwhelmed so quickly, and I'd look at people and say, why are they not overwhelmed? And I think it was partly ADHD, partly trauma, and it was intertwined. Partly I didn't have the tools to be able to say, I am overwhelmed, that's okay.
Totally.
And I just think that having more information, and I've been through Hoffman, I've been through so many things that we can talk that have really helped me realize that. But my overwhelm pattern has stopped me in my tracks.
What does an overwhelm pattern look like? Because I think a lot of people can resonate with this concept.
Yeah. And I think with ADHD, you literally are like, you have so many things in your head, you don't know where to start. So then you literally stop because you're like, I just can't.
I notice it in myself too when I'm like extremely burnt out, like I call it like I'm reaching the cliff, like I'm burning out. It gets worse and worse. I can see it in my brain, like the box is kind of like moving, like I can kind of like move things around quickly and like organize almost my thoughts and my to-dos in that way. But if I'm tired or I'm not taking care of myself, my mental health starts to deteriorate. The overwhelm kicks into high gear. And then I'm like, you're saying, like paralyzed, where I'm like sitting in a chair and I'm just like, oh my God, there's so much to do. And I am completely dead. Like I'm unmotivated. I can't do it.
Self-care for anyone really now, but especially for that ADHD brain, it is so important. Sleep is the number one thing. And a lot of times that mind will start going as soon as your head is on that pillow and you're thinking about all the things because you're calm. And that is a big one. So sleep is really important, regulating yourself before bedtime.
That's really interesting you say that, because me and my friends always talk about how like you'll be so tired during the day and then you hit the pillow and all of a sudden you just can't sleep. And then we'll be like, is it anxiety? Like, are we anxious? And I'm like, no, I'm not like negative. It's just like, to your point, it's like you're finally calm. And so it's like your free time to like let your brain kind of like finally relax, but then you can't sleep.
It's a big one. I have a notebook next to my bed. So any thoughts that come up in the middle of the night, I just write them down. I acknowledge them, say, you know what, I hear that feeling, because I think I was, as a young adult, I was running away from a lot of big feelings. I am naturally a positive person and I see the bright side, but I also have another part of myself that's really emotional and can get angry and feel deeply and strongly. I have this like empath part of me. And those two sometimes fight each other, which is an interesting thing to see. So at night, those things can come out like just roaring.
Yeah.
And so knowing that about yourself is just really important, and trying to befriend all of those parts of you is really important, that you can have all these parts and they can play together.
I was the same way too, where a lot of parts of myself kind of scared me or I avoided them, and then they'd come out in really toxic ways because you can't keep it in forever. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the tips you talk about on your socials and that we've talked about is like using your timers to emotionally regulate, like not just for the to-do list, like setting a timer to let yourself cry and like be upset, because I really struggle to like I'll cry randomly when I'm like triggered by something, and it's usually shame. And so like that's the only time I'll ever cry in front of like someone else. But like for myself, like it's very hard for me to like feel feelings in my body, like just like actually be upset. And so I think creating like a routine to allow that to happen, it sounds weird, but I think it's smart.
Yeah, my cry time. I'm the opposite. I cry at everything, and my kids are like, Mom, not appropriate timing. So I learned, because I do feel so deeply about things. And I would always look at someone like, they don't feel that way. They don't feel that sadness or that happy. And I found that really interesting. So now I have cry time and I put my timer on for 10 minutes and I just let it all out. And then I find that I feel safe. I'm not worried about, okay, am I making someone else feel uncomfortable? And I'm always thinking about other people. So I'm like, are they worried that I'm thinking they should be crying too? Because that's my loop.
That's such like an OCD spiral.
Yes, exactly. So now I just alleviate that for myself. And then I also have people in my village that know I'm a highly sensitive person, that I'm going to cry, and that they celebrate that. They think that's a gift. That is one of my superpowers.
Yeah.
As I call it, I go into warrior mode if I need to, if something makes me so sad or mad. And I'm like, all right, the sword is coming out and the warrior is coming out. And that's what I did for motherhood, for both my girls.
So you're out of college, or you're still in college when your health starts kicking out again?
Yes. I had my kidney removed and I was still having problems. The surgery did not go well. It was supposed to be outpatient, and I ended up having, lots of blood transfusions.
How old was this?
I was 26.
Oh my gosh. It's like, sounds miserable.
And it was really hard. I just started dating my boyfriend, now husband, met him on a blind date.
That's hilarious.
I was not in a place. I had been on bed rest for 30 days. I'm like, hey, guy, go have fun. Like, don't even. And we just had this magical connection. I was in the hospital. He would come. He was an investment banker at the time at like 2 a.m. And back in the day when we had VHS and videos, he would bring all these funny movies. And he was
romantic.
He was my angel at a time that was so dark for me. And there wasn't a lot of joy. And there was a lot of fear of what's happening. They were throwing out lots of things like, we're not sure if you're going to recover. And so leaving the hospital, going home and being on bed rest with this new guy that I was like really into, but I was so sickly, and he showed up. Aww. And I knew that this person was special. And then 3.5 weeks later, my right iliac artery ruptured after going to the ER 3 times. They sent me home.
Oh my God.
And said, no, I think it's a UTI. I'm like, no, this does not feel. And at that point, I was in the ER and I heard a pop. It's like a balloon popping.
Ugh.
And there was a gentleman changing the trash can next to me, and he ran and grabbed a doctor because I was by myself, and he saved my life. I went back to find him.
So it was like your artery popping.
Yes, my right iliac artery. And you have
hurt.
like 45 seconds until
Oh my gosh.
you die.
That's terrifying.
And I remember, and I screamed out, "I'm dying," because I knew I was dying, and I could not breathe at that point because I had lost so much blood over the last 3 days. And I just remember all these doctors around me, and then I went into this white light.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I want you to get into it a little bit because I think this was the craziest thing. I feel like when I first met you and you told me this story, you actually, I feel like, can say you had a near-death experience. Like, didn't you say you like literally floated above your body and like saw yourself?
I did. And I watched them try to save my life. And while they're cutting me and trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm above myself in the most calm, beautiful, like white light, and this feeling that I can't even explain. And just recently, I was listening to other people that said they had had near-death experiences, and they had the same exact
That's
recollection.
wild.
I mean, it's
if you weren't spiritual before, you are now.
Yes.
After this experience.
Yes. And I don't even think I've registered that in my 20s of like, wait, what? What happened to me? Because so many things were happening in those moments. And I wake up in ICU. I don't know that, I check that I wanted someone to come if something happens to me, a minister, and they came to talk to my boyfriend and my best friend. Oh,
so they literally thought you were going to die. They had the minister in there.
Yeah, so they had and went to go talk to them and said, "We are so sorry, but your best friend and girlfriend is not going to make it." And I didn't know that, and they didn't want to tell me until after I was recovered. So they're calling it all my family. They're all flying in, trying to figure all of this out. Then I think a day or two later, they come back in and say, "Okay, she's going to make it, but she's going to lose her right leg. We have to amputate her right leg." So I lost so much blood, and they couldn't feel a pulse in my leg. So then they come back a day or two again and say, "Okay, she's not going to lose her leg, her right leg. She will live, but she will never have children."
Wow. And you've literally done you have your leg, you're alive, you have 2 girls?
Yes.
It's crazy. I feel like something I really resonated with that you talk about is that like you have gone to so many professionals, you've gone to so many doctors, you've learned so much and invested so much because of how much you care about your company and your mission and like wanting to help other people. And one of your philosophies is like, you can't trust everyone. Like you need to keep searching. Like you're capable of more than you think. Do you think that mindset came from this? Just being told so many times that like something was going to happen that you overcame?
Definitely. I mean, I was told I won't go to college. I won't have children. Then my children were told they won't do certain things. I mean, I have always been told like, you're not going to do this probably. And I'm like, watch me.
Yeah. Where do you think that confidence comes from?
I don't know if it's confidence or if it's just survival of like, that's not going to be my life story.
I think it's a choice though. Like I think a lot of people can be in that position and just be defeated or like look at it and be like, yeah, you're right, I can't. And then they never do. You do, I feel like, have a very positive mindset. And I think you were genuinely at your core like a very like happy, determined person. But you would think after everything you'd been through that you'd be just fucking torn down. So where do you think that is? Like, do you think it's just naturally who you are? Or do you think it's a choice you had to make in those moments?
I think it's both. I really do. I think naturally I probably came into this world as a happy soul, and then a lot of things happened, and that was confusing. And I'm curious. I am such a curious soul. So I love to seek things. I love to seek therapy. I love to go to retreats. I'm always growing. I know everything. I'm always trying to learn. And I think in non-traditional settings, school, I didn't learn a lot.
Yeah.
So now I seek. And that's why I try to fly all over the US to seek professionals, to seek natural paths, to seek all of these things and sit down with him and talk about it.
Totally. And I think you're very intuitive too. I had been through so much. I was so depressed. Like I was so like, I guess, unwell in a lot of ways, but I still think there was always like a deep knowing that I had, to your point that like I knew that I like came into this world like happier. And like I remember being like, I don't have a lot of like childhood memories, but I do remember being really young at one point and like very bubbly, and that's not something that I identify with at all now as an adult. And so it's been really interesting, like looking back at those versions and trying to like embody that person, because I think that is me at my core. And I think even in the darkest moments, like I knew that I was meant for something more. I was like, it can't be this. Like this isn't what life should be. Like it can't be this. And I think to your point, that curiosity like catapulted me forward even when I didn't have the motivation or when I was too depressed to get out of bed.
I think as a child, I didn't know what to do that. So I just kind of hid it.
Yeah.
And still smiled. And I think that's why I'm going around the world going, okay, let's talk about this. I felt really alone as a mom, really alone. Again, it triggered something because I think I felt so alone as a child. And I felt like people wanted to say like, okay, my kid's doing this and doing that. And my kids weren't doing this or that, or I wasn't feeling connected to other parents. I think I've always had this lonely journey, but I think where the connection has been for me is talking about it.
I love that you're bringing this up because I think that a lot of people feel really disconnected. I used to think it was just like me, that like I had a problem connecting with other people, or like I didn't feel like connected or grounded in like public settings or in social settings. I used to like stock it up to like social anxiety, but I really think it was just this lack of me being able to be unapologetically like who I am. Though it could be labeled as quote unquote like too much for some people, I think being honest about not feeling connected, or like being honest about like not being able to relate, has allowed me to connect more and feel more grounded, which I feel like is what you're speaking to right now.
Yes. And I think it's just so interesting, the conversations I've had, and people call me all the time like, I'm so alone. I feel so lonely. I don't feel like anyone understands. I'm like, I have 10 other calls that are saying the exact same thing. If there is one person that you feel safe enough to have that talk with, I guarantee they've had feelings or emotions like that at some point.
Totally.
And we're all trying to walk around. So I always try to think, like, okay, maybe I'm putting this perception on someone else. And usually they're like, Cassie, I feel lonely too.
Yeah.
And I think being vulnerable has been my biggest gift.
Yeah, and I think too, just like your content and like the coaching and what you do, I think that's a huge way as someone who maybe struggles with mental health issues or who struggles with ADHD to feel connected, is like you kind of have to force yourself to be vulnerable in some ways for the sake of like real comfortability.
You do. And I think that helps with my clients, is that they know that I'm walking this too. You know, I call it the human roller coaster. We are all on this roller coaster. We can be riding the wave and on top of it and feeling so high, and we can fall down in a second. And it's just having more tips and more tools so you can get back and fight your way back to the top. People just want to be acknowledged.
Yeah. Ugh, yeah. I mean, how I see it, how Han sees it, it's like subconsciously I was just like wanting to be seen. It wasn't a conscious choice. It was so interesting. But looking back now, I'm like, oh, duh. Like that makes sense.
Yeah. I ran away from anger and sadness for so long. I fought it. Like, no, I'm not going to feel that. I have so much to be grateful for. I have this incredible life. I have my health, all these things. And when I just sat, Hoffman taught me just to sit in the sadness.
Okay, please get into Hoffman.
Oh my gosh.
That's one of my questions today. So if you don't know Hoffman, it's like this program it's based in LA.
It's in Northern California, and Connecticut. They have 2 locations.
I want to go so bad. It's just this huge, like, I feel like it's like known and famous now for the impact it's had in people's lives. Can you please just get into it?
I know. I'm so excited people are talking about it. I think, Oprah had them on their podcast. More and more people are coming out and saying, I did this process. I did it, gosh,
and when
3
they say
years
it like
ago.
that, it's so culty. Like they're like, I went to Hoffman Process. But I've actually heard only amazing things about it.
It was the hardest thing I've ever done. There were a few times I wanted to leave. You don't have your phone. They take your phone away for 6 nights, 7 days.
Wow.
And you go in this process with 40 to 45 other humans that are just as brave, and they are all different. You don't know their names. You go by their childhood nickname. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. So you don't even know, and you do not talk about what you do. And it is talking for 7 days. You go down to things that happen in your childhood, and the processes that they do to help heal that part of you is unbelievable.
And is it like all group, or do you do one-on-one, or is it both?
So they have small groups that you have a leader that you have. I think we had 7 or 8, and then you do big groups.
Wow. And you just have to be vulnerable in front of all those people.
And you are. And everyone ends up they're like, I'm not going to do that. I'm so uncomfortable. And you end up, the way their process works is so incredible. It is physical, it's mental, it's everything. And it's 7 days of 7 years of therapy.
Well, and I feel like you probably like halfway through the week, you're just like so delusional and vulnerable that like that's why everybody just like opens up. You're like, okay, we're here, we're doing this.
And for me, you have to sit in some silence. And that was the hardest, especially for ADHD, because the way I process is talking. And I was writing things down, but not talking after having such intense emotions. And it brings up things. And you do a lot of work before too. So you know what you're dealing with. I mean, I think it was like 8 hours of prep work that you work with your personal coach. So you know what you're going in. And I've had years of therapy and I was like, oh, I'm ready for this. No, some things showed up that I was not aware of. And one of them was how I've been running away from feeling sad and mad, and was taught that as a little girl, be sweet, Cassie, don't have those big emotions. That's not appropriate. Just do what everyone wants you to do. And when I realized that I could sit in that and it passes so much quicker than just trying to push it away.
That's so profound, because the work I'm doing in therapy right now, which has been like brutal, is like I have really come to the understanding that like I intellectualize all my feelings, like all of them. And I've always known I've been like an intellectualizer, but I think I didn't realize till recently, to your point, like how I actually do not feel like emotions.
Yeah.
Like I'm someone that like weirdly doesn't trust people but needs to talk to people to feel better about things that are happening, because to your point, I have to like circle and spiral out loud about like what's in my head, and then that makes me feel good. Yeah. And so I didn't realize that that wasn't the process of feeling your feelings. Like I thought that was feeling feelings. And I think when I put it out like that, I'm like, well, that's so stupid. How did I not know that? But I think it was just the way I was functioning for so long. I thought that was me feeling my feelings, like talking about a situation, letting my head spiral, then I feel better. But really, to your point, I was like, I've been curbing like feelings. And so my therapist has been like, are you hurt? Are you sad? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And she's like, what does that feel like? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm literally telling you, like, I'm hurt and sad. And she's like, that's not feeling feelings. And it was profound for me. And it's been really hard work trying to even access that. So I can't even imagine in that environment having those realizations and then not being able to talk and then already being vulnerable. That must have been life-changing for you.
It was life-changing. And I think really realizing and sitting in that, because I am, like you said, a processor verbally. Like, even with my husband, we go once a week on talks, and he's not a processor in that way, but I need to vomit everything and I need to not be judged. I have realized with Hoffman that sitting within myself, I actually do enjoy my own company.
Yeah.
And my head's not going a mile a minute. And I am asking myself, hey, you're feeling sad. What's that about? Let's dig deeper on that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You don't have to be happy all the time. I think our culture is always like, okay, be positive, be happy, do this. But in other cultures, you can sit in your sadness and people will say, hey, I'm really sad. And they're like, wow, tell me more about that.
Well, and I would argue that I'm actually more positive when I've allowed myself to like hit the other end of the spectrum. But it's when we don't hit both spectrums that we start getting really, depressed, apathetic, because you haven't allowed yourself to feel sad. So how could you possibly feel happy?
Yeah. And I think that's why I do the cry time. Yeah. I allow that. And then I have anger time. And I scream in my car because I was always...
I love you so much. This is awesome.
So someone sitting next to me at the light's probably like, whoa, what's going on over there? I mean, I will say the F-bomb, everything that like sweet Cassie as a little young child and even teenager wasn't supposed to do, I do. I get this high and it's almost like crying. Like sometimes you just cry and you feel better afterwards. You're like, oh, because I believe that these feelings live somewhere in them. Whether you're expressing them or not, they go somewhere.
Totally.
Especially with trauma.
Body keeps the score.
Body keeps the score. And so I try to do that at least once a week of just like screaming, yelling in my car, or if my house is, no one's in it and all my doors are locked so the neighbors don't think something's going on. And I scream Like, I mean, just
That's
and let it
liberating.
all out.
I need to do that.
Yes.
Honestly.
Do it and tell me what you think.
It's so interesting you bring this up because I actually I go to Joshua Tree all the time, which I know you do too.
Yes.
Sounds like we're going to need to like
I know.
do a trip
I know.
together of some sort. But I go probably like 3 times a year. And the last 2 times ago I went was the first time that I have ever screamed like out loud. Like I've never been able to. Like I've tried and I just, for some reason, I have this like block where like I can't. Like it just feels weird. Like besides like not being on a roller coaster or something. And so like I forced myself to, and it was like the most liberating feeling ever. I literally haven't done it since. I need to take mushroom chocolates and like get there again. But like I literally did it and it was the strangest. I was like, I can't believe I'm 28 years old and I've never like screamed and like let myself be angry in this way.
Hoffman talks about this, and they suggested other things, which physical things, like even without using your voice.
Ooh,
tearing papers.
Ooh.
Like old school, I know I don't have them anymore, but phone books or magazines or anything, and just ripping them to little pieces.
Kind of back to your story, I know that you found out kind of, and I'm assuming as you like get older, like more of this stuff is popping up, you realize through your daughters that you actually have had ADHD this entire time. What was that realization like?
Well, at first I was like, that's not me, that's my husband. Of course.
Well, of course, that's womanhood.
And then I realized, I was like, no, that would be me. And it's interesting because they have parts of both of us, and then just you put them together and you mix them in the bowl and then you don't know what comes out. So I see both my husband and I in our girls, but I started noticing because they are girls, I was like, wow, I used to do that. I had those big emotions, but I didn't feel safe enough to express them. I was running from something and just needing to be busy and talking a lot. I would always get in trouble in school for talking. And that is a big thing for ADHD is girls won't stop talking and the interrupting.
So I'm assuming it gave you like, you were almost like liberated in a way too, because you're like, this makes so much sense. Was that kind of like how?
I didn't feel that at that time because I was so, I think, nervous about how to help support my older daughter. And I was kind of in this warrior mode. So I don't know if I realized it until a little bit later where I felt like I could take a breath. I give this advice to all couples that come and see me. I'm like, do you have a date night? Do you have, with young adults, do you have something fun planned with your friends? Fun needs to be happening.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's parts that are so serious of when we are exploring of like what our parts look like and how to help support them. So I'm always like, we have to bring joy, we have to bring fun, even when we're having intense moments of trying to figure things out.
Totally. Even recently, I feel like I'm like, I have the podcast. Obviously, it's very mental health oriented. I work with a lot of founders and I'm like essentially their therapist too. And then I'm going through my own fucking healing journey. And so it's a lot of self-help, like a lot of self-help books, a lot of that. And I'm like, okay, I need to like turn that side of my brain off and like go do something that's not this heavy because I'm such a like heavy person. And so it's like, how can I like still feel authentic and like do things that I love and like have fun? And that's been like self-exploratory.
Yeah.
Self-exploratory. Is that a word? It's been self-exploratory
You're
for me.
asking a dyslexic. I don't know. But it is. I mean, because I am also like, my husband's like, you're talking about feelings all the time. And that can be a lot for someone else.
Yeah.
But it's also, I've realized that music is a big thing for me because it's fun, but it's also deep. So I can have both.
Totally.
I can be crying and laughing with music. So I found that music is kind of healing for me and it's fun. And I'm going to more concerts now than ever, especially since after COVID and that all stopped. So I'm exploring that part. We need to prescribe more fun and joy. And you might have to write that down. Friday night's going to be my fun, joyful, whatever that looks like. I go to a lot of sound bowls. I do a lot of those really cool spiritual readings. So it's finding what your passion is and really going and having fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Before I let you go, what are some like for people listening who maybe have ADHD or they're kind of like, yeah, that's me. what are some things that they can like add into their just like everyday routine that can help with some of the stuff we're talking about today, like the negative loop, the not being able to let go of things, the not being able to focus, not be able, all of the things we've talked about today. What are some easy ones? Like I love your hacks. I love them. I just feel like they're so not talked about. Like the warhead one, please get into.
Okay, yes. Warhead will stop a panic attack.
Like the sour candy warheads.
Yes. And if you don't, I mean, I know dyes are a big thing. I mean, there's lots of natural sour gummies out there. I'm attracted to sour gummies. Like I'm a kid. I love chewing. There's something in it for me that relaxes my brain. So I have mints and gums in my car. I have squishies. I have like a little basket of some, all these goodies. I'm like 50 having these. I'm like, okay, adults, kids who
someone gets in your car and they're like, oh, do you have like a young kid? You're
yes.
Like, no, these are mine.
Yeah. I'm like, no. So I think like gum, candy, protein, easy. Protein is so important for an ADHD brain. I mean, we need to have protein every meal. It can be in a smoothie with protein powder. I make it for my younger daughter every morning. It's so important to have protein. It really helps regulate our minds and our bodies.
Wow.
Fish oil. Big one for ADHD. We are low in fish oil. And I know some people are like, oh, I do Fatty 15. It's been a great supplement for me. I've seen a big change because I also have a sensitive tummy and it's worked well for me. But there's so many out there. So fish oil isn't easy. It's like little things like that you can just add to your routine every day. I always say walking, going outside, maybe taking your socks off and putting your feet in the grass, getting grounded. There's something about that calms down our bodies and our minds.
Yeah.
It could be a 5-minute walk. It makes a huge difference. I mean, there's all kinds of studies.
Yeah. I feel like when I moved downtown, because I grew up in Orange County, so it was like very residential, and like walking wasn't like, I don't know, we didn't walk really like a ton. I'd like walk my dog when I was younger, but as I got older, you just kind of stopped doing the neighborhood walk. But now that I live in a city and I walk like every day, like around sunset, I've noticed like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much better ending the day on this like long walk. And it's these little things that people are like, yeah, like journal, yeah, walk, yeah, ground, but they don't do them. And I do think they like over time, these routines really have the power to rewire a lot of our thoughts.
They do. And I always say for the ADHD brain, we have to practice something 100 times where maybe another brain does 25 and they've got it down. So we have to practice. And it doesn't always come naturally. So don't get frustrated with yourself. It will. That's why routines are so important. And I just say, give yourself grace. It's okay if it didn't work out the first time. Try again.
Yeah.
Or try something else. That's why I have so many different tools. It's so personalized for what works for your brain. And I'm always trying different things for myself.
Yeah.
So keep trying. Don't give up on yourself and reach out for help.
Yeah. In regard to the ruminating and the letting go, I struggle to let go. I cannot let go. It's so hard. Any tips for people really in the midst of like trying to work on that? Because I know that can be like a very frustrating, anxiety inducing, emotional place.
It's a big one. And it's one that I still struggle with. I love L-theanine. It's a vitamin that really helps. I mean, it has been, and there's like lemon balm tea. There's things that just like you, first of all, why you're ruminating is because your body is not calm. And you are not regulated. And so maybe it's not showing up in your body physically, but it's showing up in your brain. Mm-hmm. There is a natural vitamin NAC that helps for OCD, and they say 1,000 milligrams in the morning, 1,000 at night. I'm not a doctor, but I know psychiatrists that do talk a lot about that. So making sure, is this an OCD spiral, or is this just really, I don't have enough tools in my toolbox? So also making sure that you've talked to a doctor, you've talked to a therapist about
like self-diagnosed on TikTok.
Yes. And there's a lot of information out there. I just told a client this week, I said, get off the social media for you right now for information seeking. If you want to go have fun and look at outfits and all those things, but stop, because that might not be the right thing for you. We really need to personalize. And that's where I want to know personal, what you've done, what you're doing, what your goals are, because we can just throw things out there, but you have to be aware and know and try them.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing just all of your knowledge and just getting vulnerable and having this conversation with me. I feel like there's very few people that really like leave it all on the floor, and I really appreciate it. I ask everybody before they leave, the podcast is called How I See It. looking back at just like everything you've been through, the ups and downs of like your physical health, your mental health, having daughters, there's so much more to go. But looking back, how do you see it all?
I see it as a gift that I want to share with others so they don't feel alone like I did.
Yeah. Oh, we're so aligned in that way. I love it. Please share where people can find you. They can follow you. Yeah. I know through the link in their your bio they can book, but like where do people find you on TikTok and Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Cassie Blakely 17. 17 is my lucky number, so I have to have there that and always. And then I'm new on TikTok. That's kind of and I'm getting information out there, and I'm here to help.
And you work with parents of children with ADHD, but also you're kind of expanding to young adults with ADHD as that need has hit social media.
Yes, I've been working with some young adults and parents. They don't have to be diagnosed. They just might think something's going on. I love when they're younger and they're like, look, the intuition, a mom's intuition's like something's felt off. He or she's starting to struggle a bit more. So all stages, if you do have reports, I love to look at them and find out what you've done and where you should go, because I know for myself, I did try too many things. I just want the best, and I want to see your child shine their light and your whole family be their best versions.
I love that. Thank you so much, Cassie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you leave here feeling motivated and inspired. Do not forget to rate and review the pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And don't forget to follow How I See It Pod so you can keep up with podcast updates and see who's coming on next. And if you're not already, come join the fam and follow at How Han Sees It. Thank you guys.